Hey guys, Steve here, Fanatic Perspective. Just wanted to make a quick recap video for week 3 of the college football playoff rankings. As we talked about last week, we predicted a lot of shakeup with the big head-to-head matchups this past weekend. So just going over the rankings real quick. Alabama is the new number 1. Clemson is coming in at number 2. Miami's at number 3. Has moved up to 4. And then we have on the outside looking in Wisconsin in 5 whole and Auburn at 6 being the highest 2-loss team. So, got a lot of flack from Georgia fans a couple weeks ago. I personally had said based on the eye test and how Vegas had it set up and just, you know, my own gut, I had Alabama 1. They had started the season ranked number 1. I had no reason to not have them in that position, but people wanted to blow smoke up Georgia's ass, and that's fine. They had a very impressive resume, but as I told you guys, let's see what happens when they go to Auburn and they get tested by a team that's really on the rise in the Auburn Tigers, and they got curb stomped. They got beat up like my man Joe Pesci in Casino. That was bad. And you can't get embarrassed like that if you're trying to again, put together your resume and compete with these other teams. Even some of these one-loss people. I mean, getting beat by 30 points, how does that help your case? So now Georgia's in a position where they have to win out to be back in the discussion in my eyes. And that means they're either going to have to beat Auburn again, assuming Auburn, depending on the Auburn-Alabama winner, and I don't think they'll beat Alabama. I think it will be the same thing because, they're just not a one-dimensional football team, but they're too limited in terms of when they in those scenarios, and I think they really got exposed again in the Auburn game, especially with a quarterback like Jarrett Stidham who could really pick them apart. Alabama didn't look great either. And I'm not trying to come off as an Alabama homer, but I've noticed that it's become fashionable just to discredit Alabama. I'm seeing that all over the media right now. People questioning their schedule, people questioning how they're scheduling their opponents at neutral sites. Listen, every year these guys have been in the playoffs. They deserve the respect that they get from the committee. So I'm just. It's become, I think people are being a little bit of a contrarian, if you will, just picking on Alabama. Moving on, shout out to Miami for destroying Notre Dame. I think there were people that had doubts about Notre Dame, and Notre Dame had been a very physical football team and it looked good all year. I remember them watching that game where they demolished USC. Miami, Mark Richt got the U back, y'all. That was impressive. Turnover chain, team speed, everything. They were out there flying, and they had Notre Dame shook. That was a lights out performance, national stage. Everyone's questioning your schedule. You guys really hadn't played anybody all year, and they got up for that game and handled their business. Now they still got to win, I believe, at Georgia Tech. Their slate's not going to be easy, and then they'll have to go into Clemson. Speaking of Clemson, Clemson came in at the 2 spot, which is another thing that people are kind of complaining about. They obviously did not play very well against Florida State, but they pulled it out. But I think a lot of people are still like, hey, well, Clemson lost to Syracuse. Why are they getting rewarded by going up to number 2? Well, the committee's kind of sticking to their guns. They had Clemson at 4 initially, so Clemson had already been ahead of Oklahoma. I know some people felt that with Oklahoma's statement win against TCU that they should have leapfrog Clemson, but Clemson kind of benefited from Auburn beating the hell out of Georgia because Clemson had went to Auburn and beat Auburn at Auburn, excuse me. So Clemson is still going to live off that win, and they have some other impressive wins on their resume. I believe NC State and some other teams that they've handled their business against. Now, that Clemson-Miami ACC championship game is, loser leaves town basically because both of them aren't going to get in. So that opens up another spot for one of these other teams. Wisconsin is in a good position right now because they just have to stay undefeated and then win the Big Ten championship game, and they're in. the committee's not going to deny a undefeated Wisconsin team. And then you have Auburn. Auburn also controls their own destiny, even though they're in the sixth, and even though they have 2 losses. If they're not going to get left out if they beat Alabama and then they go on and win the SEC championship game. I mean, against Georgia, who, at this point, I don't know why you would pick Georgia over Auburn again, but stranger things have happened. But there's a lot still out there. Even Georgia. I mean, I know I've been rough on you guys, but they still have control of their destiny, because if they win the SEC championship game, they will have a legitimate case as well. I think the committee is still a little skeptical of Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma's won at Ohio State and they beat TCU. I think the committee is skeptical of their defense. I know a lot of people threw out the Iowa State loss, but Iowa State got as high as 15 or something like that. And even though they are a 4-loss team, if you've seen Iowa State play this year, they do pass the eye test as a legitimate opponent. So let's be mindful of that when assessing Oklahoma. I think it's just really a question of their defense. Because I remember the last time they were in the playoffs with Clemson and they couldn't stop a nosebleed. So, but they have the best player in the country right now, Baker Mayfield. He would be my Heisman vote today, and I think he's kind of running away with it. But they're in the mix. They're where they need to be. Where they need to be. They'll probably face TCU again in the Big 12 championship game. But right now, I think it's setting up to where winner of Miami Clemson obviously is going to have a spot. Winner of Alabama Auburn and let's just throw Georgia in there for the SEC. That will be a spot. Assuming, and then I think there'll be kind of 2 at-larges, because I don't know if Wisconsin's going to be able to win the Big Ten. So that could open the door for a Penn State or Ohio State on the back end. So a lot to look at here. Great past weekend. Great football. Again, shout out to Miami and Auburn for the season-defining wins this past Saturday. That's what it's all about. But I'm excited to see what everyone has to say. Please leave your thoughts in the comments on what you think the top 4 should be. And I look forward to chatting with you guys next time. Thank you.